Welcome to my channel, Rainier Books. My name is Rainer. I'm broadcasting or I'm uploading this video from Stockholm, Sweden. And well, I was in Gothenburg last week. If you follow my channel, you know that. I was in Gothenburg last week for a julbord, which is a Christmas buffet that people eat here usually at Christmas. And I met a couple of teachers. It was a beautiful evening, and then in the hotel on Saturday morning last week, I was feeling sick, and my stomach was not okay. So I somehow made it home to Stockholm and Farsta, where I live, but I wasn't feeling well the whole Saturday and the whole Sunday. And the promised video that I made, because I filmed from my hotel window in Gothenburg, and I said tomorrow morning I'm going to make a video about 10 novels of the last years that really have impressed me. I didn't make it because I wasn't feeling well, and so here I am. It's Saturday again, 1 week later, and now I make a video which is unscripted. If you have seen recent videos on my channel, you have probably seen that my videos have become scripted, which I think is a large improvement at times. But I also wondered, could I be able to do something like this without a script? And so I try. Today I try. And today I also return to a segment that I have been doing years ago, almost, on my channel. It's not that old that I can see years ago, but it's definitely, I think, more than a year ago, that I did something like a Friday Reads or a Saturday Reads, or as Brian had it on his channel, a hodgepodge video, some kind of how my week was and what I sort of perceived, what kind of things I saw on television that inspired me and all around the world, things that I thought about, and of course the books that I've read. And this is mostly about books, I promise. I only finished one book last week, and I'm just grabbing it here on my table. And this is Life in the City of Dirty Water by Clayton Thomas-Müller, or Clayton Thomas-Müller, probably, as they say in North America or in the English-speaking world. This was a fascinating book. I came upon this, I think, by reading the website of Canada Reads 2 years ago, and I looked at which books might interest me, and this one caught my attention. The Life in the City of Dirty Water. It is a memoir, a memoir of healing, as Clayton calls it in the book. It is a memoir of healing, and it is a memoir of a First Nation member of the Cree Nation from Canada. Clayton grew up, he's like in his 40s, I think. He grew up in mostly in Winnipeg in Manitoba. Winnipeg is actually the name of the city of Winnipeg, the capital of Manitoba in Canada. City of Dirty Water, because it means muddy water in the First Nation language that the name comes from, Winnipeg. So this is muddy water, and Clayton made out of it the City of Dirty Water. He had a very difficult childhood and juvenile teenage years, as so many native North Americans, not only in Canada but also in the United States. Intergenerational trauma is one of the great topics of that book, that was infliged upon hundreds of thousands of Indigenous people, or First Nation people in Canada, by the Canadian government mostly, and by the church. The Canadian government decided, as you might know and probably know, in the 1880s, early 1880s, they started building so-called Indian residential schools. And they kidnapped, I have no other word for that, they kidnapped children from their parents, First Nation children, brought them to these schools, cut off all their hair, changed their clothing to Euro-American, to Euro-Canadian clothing, and tried to beat out, to sort of erase the Indian in them, to make Canada a Euro-North American country. This has led to enormous abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, not only from 1880 onwards to, let's say, 1910, but the last residential school in Canada was closed actually shortly after my daughter was born in June 1996, 116 years of trauma, 116 years of abuse, 116 years of oppression by colonial powers. This is just incredible. And the first part of the book, Clayton describes his very difficult years of childhood with a loving mother, but a mother that sometimes chose men who were very violent, and Clayton witnessed violence. He also grew up to be a teenager that was experiencing violence all around him. He was physically abused, sexually abused. And then his life changed for the different because he became an activist. And now today he is one of the most well-known activists for indigenous rights in North America, I guess. Has performed, has been guest of several lots of conferences all over the world now. Also worked in the Amazon with indigenous people there to help them get more of their rights. And this is an amazing memoir, an amazing book that opened my eyes even more to this genocide, this cultural genocide that the country of Canada tried to commit against First Nation people in Canada. And if you are interested in that issue, if you don't say that history is history and why should we look at it, it's still infringing problems for First Nation people, and it is a crime, a genocidal crime, cultural genocidal crime against the First Nation people that is really unimaginable if you don't get yourself informed about that. I'm looking for a piece to read here from that book about when he speaks about anger. When I got back to Winnipeg from Oaxaca, I went to go see an old man for help in removing some of my anger. I haven't mentioned my anger much because I didn't notice it for many years, no more than a fish notices water. Anger was the medium I moved in. Anger seduced me into conflict with every authority figure I crossed paths with. Anger lured me into crime. It made senseless violence and pointless destruction the only way I could express myself. It made drug dealing and prostitution seem justified. Because if nothing matters, anything goes. That is the corrosive tide of nihilism. Clayton Thomas-Müller, Life in the City of Dirty Water. It's not overly a 5-star read because there are some parts of it that I would have changed if I would have been a lector. And because they are, in the second part, there are too many names, too many singular events, one after the other. And it could have been even better, but it's a great book. Well, after that, I heard a podcast on Spotify by Gimlet Media. Gimlet Media is an amazing North American company that makes podcasts, among the best podcasts there are on the market, I would say. And Gimlet Media has done a podcast in 2 seasons, which are quite a bit different, but they all deal with First Nation and with Native Americans, because the author is Native American. It's Connie Walker. Connie Walker has made 2 seasons of podcasts under the headliner Stolen, and I will link to that podcast down below. Stolen is a podcast, the first season of Stolen is a podcast about a young woman in Missoula, Montana, who disappears in 2017 or 18, I think, from her home, and she's never found. Until today, she hasn't been found. And Connie Walker is following the story of this young woman, Jermaine, and it's very compelling, it's very beautifully told, and very engaging. So really, really recommend that too. But the second season is even better, because there it gets very personal. Connie Walker is researching the life and times of her dead father, of her late father, whom she had a very problematic and difficult relationship with, because her father was full of anger and violence at times when Connie was young. So then she hears from a relative. Dad told me the story when he was a RCMP, a Royal Canadian Mounted Police officer. He assaulted a priest that he stopped at a traffic control because he recognized the priest being the priest who had assaulted him physically and sexually many years ago when he was a child and going to St. Michael's residential school in Duck Lake in Saskatchewan. So Connie Walker follows the traces. She tries to to tie loose ends of that story. And she finds the story. She tells the story of her family, but also the story of people who went to those residential schools, like the parents of Clayton Thomas-Müller went to. So there is a very deep connection to that. So listen to Stolen, actually the second season of St. Michael's Residential School, about this school, this residential school in Duckley, which is not a school, it's like a concentration camp. This was winning the Pulitzer Prize for audio reporting in 2023. So it's really great stuff. And it didn't only win the Pulitzer, it won several other beautiful awards. So let's get to the things that I'm reading now, that I try to read now, because I'm sort of in a little reading slump just before Christmas. But the library always helps me and sends me books because I ordered them. And they tell me, read this, read this, read this. So here is Tan Tuan Eng, The House of Doors. That is mirroring, there's a mirror, you can see my windows. No, you can see the television actually. In that, it is a book, as you have heard about the Booker Prize, it was longlisted. You can see the logo of the longlisted books there. And it is about the British romancier and author Somerset Maugham. Somerset Maugham coming to Indonesia in the 1920s, I think, and he comes into a family situation, changes the situation. Sounds very, very interesting and poetic. But a little bit farther, I haven't started that yet, but I have started Dog Soldiers by Robert Stone. This is as you can see, it's a pretty old edition. I think this is actually from 1974 or 3, that edition, because the book is from 1973. Dog Soldiers by Robert Stone. And it actually won the National Book Award for Fiction that year. It is about a journalist in Vietnam. His name is Converse. And Converse is doing drug deals. And he's, in the first 70 pages or so that I've read, I really like it. It reminds me a lot of Ernest Hemingway's writing. Converse is a man who is a journalist. His wife is back home in California. But Converse is having other women and girls in Canada. And he also tries to make a big drug deal. But he describes the atmosphere, the scene of hanging out there with soldiers, with other journalists in such a way that it gets very visible in front of my eyes, and I almost see a movie. And I really have enjoyed that so far. Dog Soldiers by Robert Stone. I have 2 Japanese books because I realized I haven't read anything by Miyako Kawakami this year because there was nothing that has been released by her. So I thought I must read some Japanese books because I love Japan and I love Japanese literature. So I found 2 books that I don't know so much about. This is kind of weird. Stories, a story collection by Izumi Suzuki, Terminal Boredom, that I got. Can't tell you anything about them, but we'll probably do next week. And I also got me a novel which is called by Emi Yagi, which is called Diary of a Void, and was a bestseller in Japan. So these 2 books I'm very curious about. And finally, last but not least, let's speak, I think, 3 or 4 minutes about Masha Gessen. Masha Gessen, I love their book, Surviving Autocracy. I love their books about Russia, about Putin, and about The Future Is Now, or The Future Is, the National Book Award winner that they wrote. I'm sorry. Masha Gessen has written an essay in The New Yorker. It's called In the Shadow of the Holocaust. And that essay is brilliant. I thought it was absolutely smashing, brilliant. The build-up, the argumentation that they get from so many different sources is very conclusive. It is about the memory policy of Germany in the beginning, pretty much. A lot about it. It takes 50 minutes to read that essay, so it's pretty long in The New Yorker. I link it down below. And then Gessen develops comes to the Israeli government, to Israel today, to Ukraine, and also, of course, about the situation of Gaza. And Gessen compares, and that has caused enormous criticism in Germany and actually to a big scandal, I think, because Gessen actually Gessen was supposed to receive the Hannah Arendt Award for fine writing for great journalism in Bremen in Germany by, among them, the Heinrich Böll Foundation, which is a foundation of the Green Party. But the foundation has now distanced themselves more or less from that and has criticized Gessen for, and that is the main criticism for comparing the ghetto of Gaza, for even using the term ghetto for Gaza, but also for comparing the Gaza ghetto, as Gessen says, to ghettos that the Nazis had in Eastern Europe. Wow, this is a great and very courageous comparison, because I could have told them that this will lead to consequences in Germany, but Gessen knew it. Gessen also says in the beginning of the essay, there are certain things that you're not supposed to say in Germany. You get backlash, even if they might be justified or possible in a lot of other countries. Because the German Staatsräson, the reason for existing of the German Federal Republic of Germany, is the safety of Israel. That is what Chancellor Angela Merkel said 2008 in the Knesset, in the parliament in Israel, and also politicians said today after the horrendous and gruesome and terrorist attack of Hamas on October 7. But Gessen concludes that the singularity that they have in Germany, in my home country, and that also I have always sort of had in my DNA, the absolutely singularity of the Holocaust, and that you're never, ever, under any circumstances, are allowed to compare anything that happens in the world after the Holocaust to the Holocaust. This singularity of events that we say never is never again, that we say that history is not supposed to repeat itself. We don't want this to repeat itself. That this also endangers our ways of empathy and of also seeing things that are so obvious in front of our eyes. Hannah Arendt, who was a great German philosopher, a Jewish German philosopher, she gave the name to the Hannah Arendt Prize. And Masha Gessen said, I saw a video today of Masha Gessen talking about the controversy, and Masha says that I don't think that Hannah Arendt would be able today to receive the Hannah Arendt Prize in Germany, because Hannah Arendt was very critical in the end of the 1940s towards certain radical right Jewish Israeli parties that about their policies, and that would have immediately gotten her the label anti-Semite. And that's what they also say about Masha Gessen. It is a very controversial, a very tough essay to read. It's beautiful language as always, and I actually have to say that I got a lot of its points. So read Masha Gessen's essay and tell me down in the comments below what you thought of it in that discussion, because I really think that after almost 2 months of bombardment of Gaza, when you tell people in the north, the civilians in the north, move south because we're bombing the north, then the people move south. The north is bombed and destroyed, and almost all of the houses are gone. And then they say to those homeless people in the south, move back to this and that part, because now we're going to bomb the south. You cannot treat 2 million people like that in the hunt of like 10,000 or 15,000 Hamas terrorists. It is impossible to create peace on the death, on the coffins of children. That is my opinion. And I never ever forget the atrocities that Hamas committed, and I never ever forget, of course, and I want all hostages to be released as soon as possible. This is a crime. But can you answer a crime with a sort of ruthless retaliation against a collective community? Can you make peace, or don't you instigate hate in generations to come? And how will you create peace after that? That is my question. I have no answer to that. But it's always important to see two things and two sides and not get too one-sided. That's also what Gessen tries to say in that essay. And I really am shocked that Gessen gets sort of put into a corner for that very open-minded and very sharp and brilliant analysis. Well, I hope that you have good books to read this weekend, that you have beautiful books to read this weekend. It's the third Advent for those of you who are Christians and celebrate Christmas, so prepare for Christmas and have a great reading time, and I see you soon in another video. And the video with the 10 books that impressed me a lot comes soon. Thank you and goodbye.